So I've been studying the book of Kings for the past few weeks and I've just finished, and something really struck me about the Israelites. So at the time when Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, became king, and some of the Israelites, when they said it should lighten their yoke and all of that, and it took counsel from his age group, and the Israelites, the 10 tribes, went off and said, we have no part in you, son of David, and they were left, and that was when the kingdom split into two. And Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, was the one that led the coup against Rehoboam. And the Bible recorded that even though the prophet, I think it was Elisha then, had said that Jeroboam was going to take the kingdom from Israel, that God had prophesied it and all of that, Jeroboam never did right in God's sight. Like he knew there was God, he knew the prophet, and he did walk in the line of what the prophet had prophesied, which is taking the kingdom from Judah and all of that, splitting it. He did evil in the sight of God. It was so bad. And it was interesting that every single king in Israel after that never did right in the sight of God. They all did evil. If you were going to read through the book of Kings, you realize that even though they were on and off in Judah, there was still some kings that did right in the sight of God, like Ezekiah, but that old lineage in Judah kept being David, because God had promised David that there would always be a child of David on the throne. So his lineage maintained Judah. So Judah it was just the Benjamin and the tribe of Judah that made up Judah, and every other the other 10 tribes went to the tribe of went with Israel, and their capital became Samaria. And I keep wondering why at that point in time a lot of the law also kind of split. Then, when they were worshiping in Jerusalem, it became Mount Gerizim in Samaria and in Israel and all of that. And there were times that the kings agreed, the kings of Judah and Israel, they would fight other people, like maybe the king of Aram and all of that. And I realized that the fact that a king, imagine if a king in Judah did right this year and his child became king, the child became who do evil in the sight of God. And the Bible was also very particular about talking about the mother of whoever that king is, because it is really important that as a mother you can have more influence in your child's life. Because at that point in time, when the kings have loads of wives, the mothers were probably the ones left with training up their children. So a lot of the women are trained the children up in their own way. So if the mother was not right with God, the child will not be right with God, which is why the father can do right and the child will not do right. And it wasn't clear how they chose the kings, who is the next in line. Like, it's not usually like a first child thing. We can tell that from the story of Solomon, because it was not the first child of David. So the kings would have had to choose a successor. There's so many lessons that I've picked up from the book of Kings, but one main thing I learned was the fact that generations forget God. Like, the generations that experience God, and you can tell that even from the Israelites, the people that experienced God in the desert, that had the manna from heaven, they also, that same generation, rebelled against God. They saw the direct miracles. So who are you to say that human beings, they forget the good deeds that you've done to them? People will always forget when things become inconvenient for them. They will always forget the good deeds that you've done, if they can do it to God. Same thing with generations. As the king is, the people would follow. That was why every now and then there were prophets of Baal and Asherah and all of that, and the next king would pull it down, another king would raise them up again and build them up again. There's so many things to learn in the book of Kings that I just realized I've never really studied the book of Kings. I've read them in the past, but I never really paid attention to all of that. And that also made me go on Google to learn a lot more about how the kingdom split and why we have Samaritans and all of that. And the other bit I learned was the fact that Israelites, they are all scattered around the world. When God left them to the Assyrians, I think it was the kingdom of Judah that the Babylonians took over. And it was because they constantly did evil in the sight of God. Even God could not hold it again. It was like, you know what? You are my people, I promised, but, just go. So the Assyrians took them, and the Assyrians now took over their land and push them out of their homeland and settle them in other nations. So there are so many Israelites scattered around the world. And that also made me think about the fact that even the current day Israelites that we have today, they are not the original Israelites. The original Israelites actually scattered around the world. So there are only a very few people that can actually call the same Israelites, like the direct tribe of the sons of Jacob. So that's just a food for thought. If you've never studied the book of Kings, read it, study it. There's so many lessons that I picked from it. As I read about Elijah, Elisha. I know. So maybe at some point I can do a series about the things that I've learned, but I've just told you a lot of. This is just the story and one or two lessons that I have learned from the book of Kings. So I'm going on to the book of Chronicles now, and I'm super excited to see what I would learn in there. So see you some other time, and cheers. Bye.